Today I'm going to talk about Shakespeare's sonnets. In fact, first I start with telling you about what sonnets are all about. It originated probably in Italy, with Dante writing a number of sonnets addressed to his beloved Beatrice. Now, the sonnet was actually imported into England from Italy. After Dante, it was Petrarch, who lived between 1304 and 1374, who started writing the sonnets, and it was brought into England by two people named WYATT and SURREY. Now, when WYATT started writing in England, he was basically copying Petrarch. The style of his writing was all from Petrarch, but his sonnets were not published until 1557. That was something like 15 years after his death, and they were published in a collection of poems known as Tottel's Miscellany. WYATT had been copying Petrarch for the most part, and in his poems we find two parts in the sonnets. One is an octave, which means 8 lines, followed by a sestate, that is 6 lines. Now, in between the octave and the sestate, there is a pause, which is indicated on paper, like when you see it in a printed form, it is indicated by using a space between. So you have the octave, a space in between, then you have the sestate. Now, with the 9th line of the poem comes a turn of thought, a change of thought, which is known technically as the volta, and that is spelled as VOLTA. The thought in a Petrarchan sonnet can be compared to a wave that's going up and down. The octave in a Petrarchan sonnet has the rhyme scheme ABBA, ABBA, but the sestate varies. It can sometimes be like CD, 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 or CDD, CEE. It keeps on changing. Now, when WYATT was writing, he was basically copying Petrarch for the most part. But when Surrey started writing, he introduced a change. He brought his own variety, and that's where we see originality. And when Shakespeare started writing, he was basically following Surrey's sonnets. So in Surrey's style, what we find is the 14 lines are divided into 4 units. There are 3 quatrains of 4 lines each, and the ending is a couplet, that is 2 lines. 14 lines divided into 4 units. 3 quatrains, that means 3 into 4, that's 12 lines, and the ending is a couplet, meaning 2 lines, which makes it 12 plus 2, 14 lines, that's a sonnet. The rhyme scheme followed by him was AB, 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 CC. Now, both WYATT and Surrey were imitating the conventional thought patterns of Petrarch. And that is why sometimes you see, it seems to be very artificial and insincere. But of the two, Surrey is the one who is always considered to be more graceful, and he is lyrical also. And if we make a comparison, we could always end up saying that Surrey was the better of the two. Now, if we talk about WYATT's sonnets, his sonnets were sometimes, clumsy. You didn't find it very interesting to read them. Now, talking about Shakespeare's sonnets, he, as I told you, was copying Surrey in his sonnets. The total number of sonnets written by Shakespeare was 154, and they were first published in the year 1609. But they were in circulation as early as 1598, and maybe they were written between 95-96, 1595-96. Now, if we try to divide the sonnets, we could classify it as the first 126 sonnets were addressed to a young and handsome man who has been interpreted as Earl of Southampton, and William Herbert, who was the Earl of Pembroke. The next 26 sonnets are addressed to a dark lady. And we are told, that she betrays the poet for the young man. She obviously sacrifices him. Now, of all the Elizabethan sonnets, Shakespeare's is the least typical. It does not celebrate the idealized love of an idealized mistress, but it is all about the affection of an older man for a younger youth, and that younger youth is basically wayward. Now, if you go through all the poems which he has written, so most of them which he has written are of these patterns, maybe divided, maybe classified in this sort. And in his sonnets, you find Shakespeare most of the time, he's crying about his misfortunes. He feels like an outcast, and the patron whom he had, the one who was paying for all his works and his other needs, he starts patronizing someone else. So he has a rival poet, and even the mention of that is there in his sonnets. Then you have sonnets in which you find that the poet's mistress leaves him, and she doesn't just leave him, she leaves him for the young man whom he liked so much. We find, there are a lot of other places where he's talking about things which are coming straight from his heart. And Wordsworth at one place talks about unlocking his heart. He used to unlock his heart in his sonnets, and so the poet, the dramatist much better when you read through his sonnets. Now, the style, if we talk about the style of his writing, it is free from that ingenuity which you found in his plays written earlier, and figurativeness of his later works are also not prominent in his sonnets. So in spite of the agonized tone, you find that all the sonnets of Shakespeare basically end on a very optimistic note. And towards the end, he always talks about love winning everything else, winning over everything else. And we are convinced that Shakespeare was indeed a very sane writer. He had a very sane outlook of the world. So if we talk about Shakespeare's sonnets rhyme scheme, it's basically again A B A B C D C D E F E F G G, which was first used by Surrey and was very popular among all the Elizabethan sonneteers. Now, one characteristic of Shakespeare's sonnets is that the final couplet, that's the last two lines, far from coming as the crescendo, comes with a feebleness of almost an afterthought. When you read those last two lines, it seems as though it was an afterthought. He just thought of adding it up for some reason. But mostly what it does is it affirms Shakespeare's love for the young man. Now, if you have any questions based on Shakespearean sonnets, please put it in the segment below and I shall try my best to answer them. Thank you.